Hello, everybody. Welcome along to SportsBet TV with me, Paul Alster, where, like you, I'm sure we're very excited ahead of the start of the Cheltenham Festival on Tuesday, the 11th of March. It's going to be 4 tremendous days on ground, expected to be much quicker than is usually the case at this time of year, and that could have quite an impact on the way the results pan out. As you know, if you're a regular follower, I'm always looking for decent prices. And at the big meetings in particular, I've had some tremendous success over the years, in particular at the Cheltenham Festival, with some massive priced winners, both for this service, SportsBet, and for my subscription service, Out in Front. Now, I'll have 5 selections on Tuesday at Out in Front. They've already been posted. If you want to find out about those, you can sign up and join me. We're moving into the busy section as well of the season with the big meetings of the year over jumps at Cheltenham and Aintree and the big Irish festivals, and of course the start of the flat on turf coming along soon, and then the classic trials, etc., etc. You can find the link to join me at Out in Front, where we're going to have 4 or 5 selections every day at Cheltenham this year. You can find that link in the description box below this screen. But if you want to just concentrate on my free selections, then I have 2 for you for day 1 and 2 for day 2 for Wednesday in this particular video bulletin. So stay with me. And if you're new to the service, press the subscribe button just below the screen for all my free selections. You'll be notified of them. So 2 for you on Tuesday, where the ground is going to be good to soft. And I do believe they're watering to try and maintain that. I'm looking at the big handicap races, so big priced horses for you. And the first one I'm looking at is the 240, the Ultima Handicap Chase. 3 miles, 1 furlong and 24 runners. And like all the handicaps at Cheltenham this week, this is ultra competitive, a really tough puzzle to solve. I'll be backing 2 in the race, one of which I recommend over at Out in Front. The other one I have for you here at SportsBet. Now, let me say that Broadway Boy, trained by Nigel Twiston-Davies, has long been on my shortlist for this race, and I'm loath to desert him at this stage, but I just can't get out of my mind that poor run here at the January meeting. So I've decided to look past Broadway Boy, even though he's got a good course record. You know, it wasn't difficult to get impressed with the way Katati Dory for Sam Thomas won the old Racing Post Chase, as it used to be at Kempton, a grade 3 last time out, and he's now vying for favouritism, being well backed on Monday. But he has gone up £12, and he's racing left-handed here instead of right on a very undulating track instead of a fat track. So he's got a lot to contend with, and he might just find 1 or 2 too good, in my view. Lucinda Wrestle won this 3 years ago and 2 years ago with the same horse. Do you remember Corrock Rambler, who of course won a Grand National as well? She knows what's needed to win this race, and she's put 2 in it this time: Whistle Stop Tour and Maya Town, both of whom have got decent chances. The stable jockey Derek Fox has opted, or possibly been told, to ride Whistle Stop Tour, who I think might do the better of that pair. Henry's Friend for Ben Pauling stays well and handles this decent ground. So despite a £7 rise for his latest win at Newbury, he enters calculations along with the Joe Tizard trained The Changing Man, who was very impressive in Grade 2 company last time out. But did that race fall apart? Was he made to look better than he actually is? He potentially is fairly handicapped, though, on the balance of his form this season. Melina Girl for Gavin Cromwell also stays well and won at Cheltenham last season over 3 miles, 3 furlongs. And then she was cantering 3 out when she fell at a return visit to this track the autumn before last. She has had 2 runs this season in mares listed and Grade 3 events and seems to have been given a low prior. So I suspect her to run well, Melina Girl, who's had a very low profile campaign so far. Search for Glory for Gordon Elliott failed to run his race when well fancied for a hot event at the Dublin Racing Festival earlier last month. But on his previous form, if you take a look, including a short-head second to Stella Story in a hot-graded novice chase at Punchestown in November, he looks nicely handicapped. And his stable companion, Zana here, is a very classy horse at a big price. The doubt for him clearly is the trip, because he's struggled in the past to stay anything more than 2 3/4 miles, but maybe on the decent ground, he might just have a better chance than ever of getting home. But you wouldn't possibly want to put your money down to find out. And so to my selection, one of two I'll be betting in this race. The other one, of course, available at Out in Front. And it is Famous Bridge, trained by Cumbria's Nicky Richards and the Mount of Sean Quinlan. He's my choice, a grand, old-fashioned type of a chaser who roared back to form at Haydock last time, winning the Grand National Trial over 3.5 miles, beating Apple Away, who's a good mare. There's absolutely no doubts about the trip for him. He's only gone up £4 for that soft ground win and is effective on good to soft ground as long as there remains juice in the surface. He was fourth as well in this very race 12 months ago behind Chianti Classico, and I really do anticipate another bold show as long as the ground doesn't dry out too much. And given the weather forecast for the meeting, this might be the best day of the week before the ground really does dry out or they start to put down a lot of water to give some give in the surface. So Famous Bridge is my choice for you at Sportsbet in the Ultima Handicap Chase, 20 to 1 each way for 6 places with plenty of firms. My second choice on day one of the festival on Tuesday goes in the 5:20, the 3.75 mile National Hunt Chase. Good to soft ground, 18 runners, a great deal more than we had last year when it was an absolute bog, you probably remember. Haiti Couleur for Rebecca Curtis is one horse who will appreciate the better ground. It's the early joint favourite. It should stay at its best on this surface, and an argument as well that the handicapper was rather lenient in only raising him £10 in total for wins both at Aintree and Cheltenham earlier this season. He shaped very well too when third in a staying handicap hurdle last time and looked sure to be thereabouts. The other one vying for favouritism is the hour for Gavin Cromwell, who's been drifted a little bit in the early betting on Monday. He looks to have been laid out for this and is unexposed as a chaser, most recently finishing fourth in a beginner's chase at Navan in January. He's yet to show he can handle the ground, but he's sure to have been prepared perfectly for the race. If he handles the surface, now is the hour is going to go close. While the other principle in the overnight market is transmission. For Neil Mulholland, with Patrick Mullins an eye-catching booking. He was a winner at Cheltenham in November under Patrick Mullins, and then he was second to Haiti Couleur the time after. And there's very little really to choose between the pair at the revised weights. He's had a spin over hurdles too that should have put him just right for this. And if he stays the extra distance, another one with a good chance. Now, David Pipe has been in good form down at Taunton on Monday. He's got Jericho Rouge, who would be a remarkable winner because he was a very promising staying chaser a few years ago, then had a major setback, was off the track for 2 years and 2 months before finishing third in a hot novice chase behind Heracles Westwood at Windsor, with whom he's now £7 better off for just over 9 lengths. If he could build on that, Jericho Rouge could go very well. Resplendent Grey for Ollie Murphy is in his first season over fences and has shown plenty of ability, winning on his debut at Uttoxeter, then running really well in a novice's handicap chase at Cheltenham before finishing a close second to Handstands in the Grade 2 Isha novice chase at Sandown in December, and he'll be suited by the step back up in trip, having had a spin over 2.5 miles last time out. Will do for Gordon Elliott, second in the Grand National Trial at Punchestown last time. Hastings, who was fourth over 3 miles at Ascot when bidding for a hat-trick on his most recent start. He looks as if he will improve for a longer trip. You can't ignore Willie Mullins, of course. He's got Captain Cody and Clark Kent. Captain Cody, I think, probably the better of the two. And then you've got John McConnell's runner, No Time to Wait, a horse who looks as though he will definitely improve for going up in trip as well. But my choice for this concluding marathon chase is going to be Stutzakini. Stutzakini, trained by Gordon Elliott and the Mount of Sam Ewing, appeals as a decent value bet here with the ground now in his favour. He won the prestigious Grade 3 Troy Town handicap chase at Navan in November in good style, and on his only start since was unsuited by the heavy ground in the Thyestes chase at Gowran Park. And at 28 to 1 each way, for 5 places, he's my suggestion here at Sportsbet. He represents a top yard, he's a decent price, and the stable has won this race 3 times in the last 10 years. Stutzakini I'll be backing him along with the horse I've recommended at Out in Front in what looks a really open renewal of the National Hunt Chase. So here's my second bet for you on Tuesday. I'm going to take you straight on now to Wednesday, where we're anticipating the clerk of the course will be probably watering to try and maintain good to soft ground to keep the ground safe. We don't want any injuries, God forbid, or anything like that to horses or jockeys. Now, the 240 race on Wednesday at Cheltenham is the Coral Cup Handicap Hurdle, one of the toughest handicap hurdles of the whole season in Britain or Ireland. 26 run. Be Aware, trained by Dan Skelton, represents the yard that has won this race for the last 2 years with the mighty Langer Dan. It's the yard that has a fine record at Cheltenham Festival in handicaps. And this grey has reportedly been targeted at this race since finishing third at Ascot over 2 miles just before Christmas. Now, my sources tell me that he did a tremendous piece of work at Huntingdon recently, and that has been the catalyst for what has been a major gamble, taking him down to 5-1 clear favourite. If he stays the trip, he should go very well, but he doesn't look great value now at the current odds, in my view. Now, as ever in these festival cavalry charge handicaps, it's hard to rule anything at all out of the calculation. So I'm going to just focus on a handful of horses rather than give you too many. I've got a short list, and the truth is that in this type of race, being so competitive, even if you name 4, 5, or 6, you may not get one even in a place, because we've seen amazing results in this race over the years, but I'm going to do my best for you. Comfort Zone for Joseph O'Brien is one of 2 in the race, running in the colours of JP McManus. The other one being Nicky Henderson's Imposed Trois, who was an impressive winner over just short of this trip at Newbury's Hennessy meeting in late November and hasn't been seen since. He looks to have been safe for this Imposed Trois, but Comfort Zone, third in a listed handicap hurdle at the Galway Festival last summer over 2 3/4 miles, and a winner over 2 miles at Naas in October, and third in a listed handicap hurdle over almost this trip at Leopardstown Christmas meeting behind Al Gasparo for Gavin Cromwell, when last seen 73 days ago, I think looks to have every chance, and Comfort Zone is just my preferred of the 2 JP McManus runners. Now, also on my shortlist is Sandor Clegane, trained in Ireland by Paul Nolan. He was fourth to file in last season's Grade 1 Brown Advisory Novice Chase at this meeting, but he has looked much happier back over hurdles on his most recent 3 starts, the middle of which saw him finish a creditable fourth behind the very classy Home by the Lee in the Grade 1 Savills Hurdle at Leopardstown over Christmas. And as you know, I'm sure Home by the Lee is fancied by many for the Stayers Hurdle later in the week. Sandor Clegane was only beaten 3 lengths last time out on ground that was too soft for him, I feel, in the Galmoy Hurdle at Gowran Park in January over 3 miles. And I think that dropping back in trip on better ground in a strongly run race could really suit Sandor Clegane. The drying ground won't be an issue for the Harry Fry trained Beat the Bat, who was noted staying on nicely into 5th behind Joyeuse over just 2 miles in the William Hill Hurdle at Newbury last month. He's been dropped 2 pounds since then, and the longer trip and the decent ground are going to help his chance. While Willie Mullins has one called Jimmy de Soil, a very dark horse to note. He runs here on the back of a more than 10-month absence, and he's very inexperienced over hurdles, only had 5 runs. The last 3 have all been in Grade 1 contests last spring, which included finishing second here to Ballyburn in the 2-mile 5 furlong novice hurdle. Then he finished fourth to the Brighter Days Ahead, no less, in the Grade 1 Mersey novices hurdle at Aintree last April. And we know that Brighter Days Ahead is fancied by many to give Constitution Hill a lot to think about on Tuesday at Cheltenham. I think that Willie Mullins wouldn't be running Jimmy de Soil if he didn't think he was fit after 10 months off, and he makes his handicap debut here off 146. But my selection at a big price is Eagle Fang, trained by William Durkin and the Mount of Oakley Brown. He represents a small but select Irish yard, and he runs in a handicap for the first time since being well backed but ultimately stuck in the mud when he was 12th in the Boodles handicap hurdle at this meeting last year, after which he went on to win a nice little novice hurdle at Punchestown. This term he shaped well, and in his first 3 outings he was second to Aspire Tower at Punchestown in October, then only beaten 7 lengths in third by the Stayers Hurdle Hope, Home by the Lee, in the Grade 2 Lismullen Hurdle at Navan in November, And then he was bang there between the final two flights, only for his stamina to give out over 3 miles in the Grade 1, a long walk hurdle at Ascot just before Christmas, in which he was still only beaten 9 lengths by Crambo. I think that the drop back to 2 mile 5 furlongs, rather like Sandor Clegane, on the decent ground is going to be perfect for Durkan's Gelding, who usually travels really well through his races and races fairly prominently under his regular rider Oakley Brown, who claims £5, which should help the cause. And at 33 to 1 each way for 5 places, with Bet365 at the time of this recording, Eagle Fang is my sporting bet recommended here at SportsBet in the Coral Cup on Wednesday at 2:40. I'll also be recommending a horse in the race for Out in Front as well, and you can get details of that, of course, by clicking on the link in the description box and maybe signing up to join me either with a monthly membership or just a day at a time through the Cheltenham Festival and beyond. And so to my final choice over the first 2 days, it's Wednesday 4:40. Sounds a bit like the build-up to Crackerjack, that for the older viewers. Anyway, Cheltenham Wednesday 4:40. It's time for the Grand Annual Handicap Chase. Good to soft. It's a real burn-up, is this race. 20 runners, and they'll be going like the clappers from the start. And quite a few of the horses appear, as is the case with most of the handicaps, to have been targeted specifically at this race. One of them is last year's winner, Unexpected Party, trained by Dan Skelton. £6 higher this time, and the drying ground probably not ideal for him, but he should still run his race. I think, though, he'll find a few too good. There's been lots of money around for Gavin Cromwell's My Mate Mozzie, a fine runner-up in the listed Ryanair Handicap Chase at the Dublin Racing Festival last month. He was 6 over the course and distance in last year's Grade 1 Arkle Chase. Sean Bowen is having a marvellous season. He's riding like a demon. And he's back on board Charlie Longsdon's Western Zephyr. And I think Sean will boot this one out in front and try and play Catch Me If You Can. The horse didn't run his race last time, but on his previous second to Britain's main Arkle Chase Hope on day one, Low de Sud in a Grade 2 novice chase at this venue, then Western Zephyr is entitled to serious consideration. The Down Royal Novice Chase winner Conyers Hill for Paul Nolan runs in a handicap for the first time and gets in off just 10 stone £3. And he was placed at over hurdles at 2 Irish festivals last spring, so he's proved that the big occasion doesn't bother him. And I think Conyers Hill is another lively outsider in the field. Jazzy Matty, trained by Cian Collins, will be an emotional winner of this race because, of course, you'll remember that he was the ride of the late Michael O'Sullivan when he powered to victory at this meeting 2 years ago in the Boodles Handicap Hurdle for Gordon Elliott. He was only beaten ahead over the course and distance at this season's October meeting in a novice chase, now with Cian Collins, and that form has worked out well, and on his only start since then, he shaped very well in a Thurles 2-mile handicap hurdle when he was second to Samui in mid-January. He's another that looks to have been put away to wait for better ground, and on this occasion this year they've got it at Cheltenham instead of the soft testing or even muddy ground we've been having in recent seasons. But my selection here, one of two I'm backing in the race, the other one I recommend at Out in Front. But my selection is So Scottish. Trained by Emmett Mullins and the Mount of Donna Myler, this horse looks to be well and truly targeted at this race. And although he's not the only one, of course, to fall into that category, as I said, the key factor about So Scottish is the ground, because without decent ground, he really doesn't cut the mustard at all. And the fact that he runs for the first time as well since a breathing operation to help his cause, that followed him failing to see out a 2.5-mile handicap hurdle at Leopardstown Christmas fixture, I think that has to be taken into account as well. Now, although he stays well, and to be honest, they're going to go so fast, you need a horse that's going to have enough oxygen and stamina left in the tank to get up the hill. He was second actually over 2 3/4 miles in a handicap hurdle at the Galway Festival last season. I think the strongly run 2 miles is perfect for this 8-year-old. The ground went against him on both previous attempts at the Cheltenham Festival, so I'm hoping it's going to be third time lucky for So Scottish. He's £8 lower than when he was a fine 7th to Seddon at the 2023 Festival on soft ground over 2.5 miles. And at 10 to 1 each way for 5 places with most firms at the time of this recording, So Scottish will be carrying my cash along with my other selection at Out in Front. So those are my selections for you, free of charge. Wishing you all the best and hoping that you all manage to finish out in front and winning money at this Cheltenham Festival. Uh, Whether it's going to be a favourites festival or not, we might get some very clear direction on that with those 4 hot pots going in day one, where the accumulator of the 4 is going to be about 13-2 at current odds. If that comes unstuck, the bookies will breathe a sigh of relief. If not, it could be a bloodbath at Cheltenham this year. Anyway, whatever you're backing, I wish you the best of luck. I'll be back on Wednesday evening with my selections for both Thursday and Friday. Bye bye for now.